Imagine if they make it illegal to possess physical Bitcoin or to withdraw Bitcoins from an exchange. That would open the doors to great manipulation. That should be avoided at all times. 7% inflation today, the number. The banks, of course, see Bitcoin as a competitor. I traded and invested in a lot of assets professionally as an institutional investor, mainly fixed income and bonds, mortgages, etc., equities, a lot of derivatives and structured finance products. But so gold was never on the balance sheet. But I am an old gold bug, so I had exposure to gold myself and followed the market since, well, I think the 1990s actively. Yeah, gold is a very interesting market because if we go back, well, like 100 years, for example, all the fiat currencies were, and especially the US dollar, of course, was coupled to gold. The price of the US dollar was actually the number of grams in gold or silver, and that system lasted till 1971. In 1971, that all changed because Nixon got the dollar off the gold standard, and then it went into real fiat, right? Like, well, free floating. But until that time, the dollar price of gold was essentially flat, and it was raised like one or two times in the last centuries. I think after the World War and after the 1993 Roosevelt, but there was no, essentially the dollar was the same as gold. So there was no dollar price. It's the same as the gold price. There was, of course, an exchange, but that was more the number of grams, gold and silver. Things started to get interesting after 1971, though, when the connection was gone, when Nixon got the dollar off the gold standard. The reason he did that was to debase the dollar, basically, to print more dollars, to have more spending power as U.S. government. And as you know, of course, there was the Vietnam War at the time and the Cold War going on, just starting. So there was a lot of money spent on base, on army, etc. So he basically had the choice: stop that spending or get the dollar off the gold standard, which is what he did. And then from then on, the price of gold has gone up spectacularly and has had some volatility, which it didn't have in the century before 1971. And also there was a lot of stories about manipulation, of course. Imagine if they make it illegal to possess physical Bitcoin or to withdraw Bitcoins from an exchange and make it paper Bitcoin. That would open the doors to great manipulation. That should be avoided at all times, because then it would be like gold. Gold has this intrinsic property that it is not easily collectible. It's heavy. The transport is very expensive, and even it's not only the transport, it's also the vaults are expensive, and it has to be insured. So it's about, I guess, 1% per year. It's the cost of gold having in a vault, even without the transportation. So gold has this very intrinsic thing where you'd rather have the paper gold than the physical gold. But Bitcoin doesn't have that disadvantage that gold has. Delivery is easy, delivery is fast, delivery is cheap, and holding it is so superior to holding gold. Once it is illegal or made impossible to withdraw gold, then that opens the door to manipulation, because then it's basically a fiat world. And it's very comparable to 1971, where Nixon basically said, well, from now on you cannot withdraw the gold anymore. So France, you brought all the gold after the World War, thank you, but you can't have it back. You'll have to take our fiat dollars, which they weren't happy. That's it. If the exchangers are going to do that, well, of course that would lead to people that have physical Bitcoin not putting it on exchanges anymore. So everybody that has Bitcoin on exchanges loses the right to withdraw in physical Bitcoin and is in a paper world. And that's why it's a very, very good thing to always, well, not your coins, not your Bitcoin. For example, the European case, or close to Europe, would be Turkey right now, experiencing 40-50% inflation in several months. And the more American example would be Venezuela, of course, having the money taken out by the money printing and dropping hundreds of percents a year, or it goes 50% down every month or something. But from Bitcoin's point of view, for example, right now, the price, we see the price as low. We feel the price is low at 40, but basically it has been at 50 all year long, plus or minus 10. So between 40 and 60. So that's 50 plus or minus 20%, which is nothing from a Venezuela or Turkish perspective at the moment. You could easily have the minus 20% versus the minus 50% in a couple of months or even 1 month. I think we sometimes forget the emerging market perspective on even in Europe, but the real emerging market perspective for people in Africa. 7% inflation today, the number.
Yeah.
Year-over-year inflation in the US, 7%.
The official number, which is also a BS number, but yeah.
Yes.
Highest print in what, 40 years?
Yes, highest print in 40 years. But indeed, if you look at healthcare
assets,
I don't want to make it too geopolitical, but if the US makes it too wild in for example, and it doesn't do that, right? All the things I see are good things, especially in Florida and Texas and all the states that accept Bitcoin. And the debate that's going on in the Senate and Congress in accepting and regulating and taxing Bitcoin, not banning Bitcoin. But if a state, especially America in this case, makes it, does two strange things in that you cannot withdraw any Bitcoins anymore, or a regulation or manipulation is too wild, people just move. You could hedge that risk by moving outside the US, by going to Europe and have access to the markets. Right now, the US markets are the biggest in the world, and companies go to the US, capital goes to the US, brains go to the US because they kept the access to capital markets. But when they kill that, when they make it more advantage or better to use capital markets outside of the US, which would be a big mistake. But countries have done that before in the past. Yeah, then the access to capital markets will be superior outside the US, and companies, brains, capital would move, and that is a theme that is very top of mind by a lot of Bitcoiners, at least the nomad style of life, and especially in the current geopolitical setting. So I think there's a risk for the US as well. So obvious, but so difficult to do, I guess, for a country that has grown, that is made big by Silicon Valley, all the tech companies in Silicon Valley, and all the banks in New York. The banks, of course, see Bitcoin as a competitor, so they're against, and they'll be against Bitcoin. So it will take quite some courage from leadership of the banks, and thus also from the political scene, to make that change to Bitcoin, even if it's as logical as we think it is for them with their vested interests. It's almost impossible to change their existing cash cow business into something new. And the same for Silicon Valley. Yeah, all the IT is in Silicon Valley, but Crypto Valley, where's that being built at the moment? Is that Singapore or Switzerland? Or, well, if you make it crypto friendly, you'll attract all the developers and the capital and the venture capital, etc. I guess El Salvador does a great thing, but it's of course a very small country. I guess Florida and Texas are great examples, and other states as well. I always forget that name of the state where Yellowstone is. Wyoming does beautiful things legally. Caitlin and Cynthia, a country, and especially the US, can make the right decision or historical failure by accepting the logical thing, Bitcoin, or by banning it like China did. It's beautiful to see, actually. Yeah, and I really, maybe it's good to know. I'm very hopeful because I know the discussion is going on in a lot of governments and regulators in different countries, and I talk to a lot of them in Europe, but also in the US and Canada, and those are more private settings with a lot of people from the Bitcoin community and from the traditional finance or regulator community, governments as well. The talks are good, and I think the tone is good, and I guess the stakes are known. I guess most politicians know that it's not wise to kill a promising innovation. That's a risk. But they also care about, of course, money laundering and terrorist financing and all that stuff. Yeah, and there are very clear incentives. I guess if you're the new Crypto Valley, you attract all the brains, all the capital, and all the benefits that come with that. Yeah, do you want to be the next Crypto Valley and New York, heart of the financial system in the world, or do you want some other country to be to get that advantage? Exactly like that. Well, and look at the mining. What happened? China banned it, so they lost their most strategic control on Bitcoin, the mining. Then Canada basically scared the miners away as well, because they have beautiful hydro power, almost zero costing electricity, but some political force doesn't want it. Misinformation probably. And then Texas and the US, but mainly Texas, they welcome all the miners with the flare gas, and one rig after another is powered or is powering the mining rigs. It's beautiful. It's smart as well. I think that's one of the things that America does very good, and Canada, for example, does very bad.